New York City's biggest banks are now under big pressure. NYCB, the pressure, it's not loosening. In fact, it might even be getting worse. Investors are getting kind of scared about New York Community Bank stock, and they also feel like the bank might actually collapse. Now, here's the thing. The top brass of the bank says that they've virtually seen no deposits outflowing from the bank. In fact, they're actually getting a lot of liquidity going into the bank. Now, yes, that seems to be true, but there's one thing many people are not asking about New York City real estate, which is going to be their commercial side. So if you go to places like Manhattan, which is where some of the most expensive real estate pieces are located, Manhattan has a lot of residential real estate. In fact, some of these residential real estate properties aren't even selling. It's very difficult. Now, some of the units are doing better than others, but if you look at what New York Community Bank does and what they specialize, it's mostly in the commercial sector. Commercial real estate in all parts of the world, frankly, is one of the worst to invest in. In fact, I'll rather put $1 million on some random crypto coin than buy in commercial real estate, because at least that random crypto coin might actually go up in value. But commercial real estate, kiss your money goodbye. You're not getting any value back. In fact, if you check out some of the rent stabilized apartments and also the office towers in New York City, they are done. Okay, another rent stabilized haircut. This time it's coming with some shears. BGO is selling some of the biggest rent stabilization apartments for 64% off. Now, if you guys thought that commercial real estate was bad, which it is, in fact, some commercial buildings in Manhattan are selling for 30 to 40% off. Some in Chicago are selling for 90 to 95% off. That's pretty bad. So we got NYCB not only loaning a ton of money out to commercial real estate, but they're also loading a crap load of money into rent stabilized apartments. What's so bad about these rent stabilized apartments? Is there something nasty about these apartments? What's going on? So the thing about rent stabilized apartments is in these ultra big cities like New York, it's really weird, especially if you're from outside the US. Some apartment buildings actually have rent stabilization, meaning the landlord of the building could, one, never increase the rent of the building, or two, increase it by a very, very small amounts, way below what the market is. This is why a lot of rent stabilized apartments sell for very cheap prices, because you can't actually live in them because the tenant's there and you gotta oblige to the super low rent. This is why normal condos and normal apartment buildings are usually much more pricier. But generally speaking, these apartment buildings make a lot of money because even though they're rent stabilized, you can't jack it up. As long as the expenses are low, you still make a pretty good hefty income. And when one person doesn't want these rent stabilized apartments, there's like a whole entire line of people who wants these. But when you have everything being more expensive nowadays, like for example, you got rising interest rates, employee salaries are also higher, property taxes are higher, HOA is higher, and insurance is higher. Everything is getting more pricey, so much so that these rent stabilized apartments are no longer profitable, and now they're selling for insane discounts. Now, if this was a regular apartment building in New York City, yeah, it's not selling for 64% off. I'm just gonna let you know. In fact, a lot of New York City good residential property, they haven't really went down in price. They're actually holding their prices fairly well, all things considered. So if you ask me, I think Manhattan real estate, it's not really going down per se, but some of the unique ones like commercial office space, rent stabilized apartments are all going down in value. Office vacancies, rent control, rising interest rates are all taking out many of New York's banks. So NYCB, they're not going to be having a field day just yet. I think they still got to sort this out. In fact, many investors are actually really afraid to buy into this bank despite the shares being super cheap. Many people are also very scared about investing in other New York City banks and other banks who are specialized in this sort of department like commercial and rent stabilized buildings because they feel like the lenders are probably not making their money. There's so many defaults here in the US, and it feels like the government isn't really doing much to make sure that these real estate pieces don't just implode, which some of them are doing. And NYCB, it's not looking so great. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment below. See you later.